if you can tell after that, without questions, also good. When did you immigrate from Germany?
We left Germany in 1939 in May.
In May.
In May. We went through Holland, and then we took the Sibayak from Amsterdam to Ceylon, and then the large bay from Ceylon to Sydney. We got to Sydney in the middle of June. It took 6 weeks.
And you were
with my mother and father? No.
Only with
my mother and father and several other refugees that were on board.
They were on the boat, many from Germany only?
Oh yes.
Yes.
We were about a table of people.
And everyone made it by himself, not through the Hilfsverein or such?
No. There were independent people. I remember several. There were a couple of ladies from Vienna. Each one paid for their own passage.
Yes.
We only were allowed to book passage when we had a permit where to go. My brother was in Australia and he sent us a permit. You had to have a request.
Also from Australia? Sure.
Otherwise, how many more would have gone at that time?
Yes, I think so.
We left a few behind in our house.
And it used money and all?
No, we had to pay whatever we bought, we had to pay double. We sent several pieces of furniture in not a small lift van.
Yes.
And whatever it cost, we had to pay double to the authorities. We paid for our passage, and I remember we got board money. Do you know what board money is? For each day that we were on board, if we had the money, we were allowed to take it, but it stayed with the purser of the ship. I think it was about 20 marks a day. Luckily, the purser was very nice.
Yeah.
He split the money with us. He gave us half in cash and the other half in his pocket. But it was better than having to drink lemonades all day, which we didn't want to. After all, we did need the money for where we were going. So my father came with a couple of $100 to Australia.
And your brother was?
My brother was already established in Australia.
And he was years there?
He was there. He left Germany in 1935 and went to England to work, and then his work permit ran out in England, so they offered him a position in New Zealand. But he never got as far as New Zealand, because in Sydney a man called Mr. Biber waited for the ship, and he knew there were 2 farriers on it, and he asked them to stay. He had a job for it. That's how our family got to Sydney, Australia.
Nice. And you remember little from the Crystal Night up to your going out?
Of course. I was born in 1924, which means that I was
his age.
Well, how old was I? It was 1938. I was 13, not quite 14 yet. And that was the day that we stopped going to school. After there was no more school.
You were in Berlin?
In Berlin, Große Hamburger Straße. It was my first year high school. And after that, there was no more school. School closed. And I remember my father had a shop in Neubaustraße, which is East Berlin now. And my opinion was they were Tyroleans, they were not Germans, who came and smashed all the windows that were Jewish. And very nicely, a policeman came with his baton across the street and just pushed all the furs to the back, so they could not steal them. It was a little indication of your neighbours not participating.
Your relation with the German people?
Well, it depends. Some, if they were good people, say they couldn't say very much. They couldn't do very much. but they could be negative.
Yeah.
I've always had the feeling that the people that were bad used the situation for their own ends.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't blame them, but if you're bad, and if you can see that you can make gain over them, it is, you call it human to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, there were stories about employees taking over the shop from people. We ourselves had to sell a big house that my father took many, many years to buy to somebody at a nominal value.
Yeah.
We were glad to get something out of it. I could pay for the fares to go to Australia.
And your family tried to go out after the Kristallnacht, or you tried to
Before, no. It took quite some time for the permit from Australia to come through.
And
We already had hopes.
yeah. When you began,
I don't know, because this is something that my parents discussed between them. I was booked to go with Youth Aliyah if the permit didn't come through. So I might have got here 30 years.
They had connections with
I was in Habonim.
You were
Oh,
and through them you had would
No, there was the Palestine Out, where you registered your young people, and I think, as much as I remember, it was easier to send your young children out by themselves than all of them going.
And you had a connection with Abraham?
Yes. But I'm afraid my parents were not very adventurous. They had, although they came from Poland, they were yakkers through and through. They would not risk anything. If they had a permit, they went. I would hate to think of what happened to them if they didn't get the permit. They would not have moved out without. When we had a very, very nice flat on top of the shop, and in the end, several people who had their husbands in Schaffhausen came to live with us to deal with the authorities. A couple of Viennese people. We had room because my sister was gone already, my brother was gone already, my other brother was gone already.
Then they were gone
In Australia. No, my sister in Israel. And we had the room, we had 4 bedrooms, so of course, and also the house belonged to us then, and whenever a flat was empty, we gave it to somebody else. And you know, you get little stories through about, I remember one of them was a friend of mine, a little older than I was, very, very German Jews, who couldn't really digest what happened to them. Simple people, but German, after all. We only
after the Kristallnacht also?
Right through. Bewildered. So the husband worked at some setting rails or something every day. We left them behind. I don't know what happened to them.
But they
stayed at our place. Well, they
believed.
They didn't believe. They knew what was happening, but it was beyond their belief. He had distinguishing from the First War.
They were
Germans. And then we had a family called Orenstein living with us. The boy was maybe 5 years younger than I was, who were also waiting for a permit to go somewhere. And another family, König their name was, also waiting. So you can understand, people came, gave their house up, or sometimes had to give their home up, and came to stay in one room. We had quite a few families like that, and I do remember that we left 3 of them in our flat when we left. That much I remember.
But they wanted also to
that
come
everybody
over,
wanted to go.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that didn't.
Yes, after the Kristallnacht.
I don't know whether it had anything to do with that.
No.
We had wanted to go quite some time. It just was not possible.
Yes, but...
Do you see, I don't know whether you remember there was an edict when all people that had Polish passports were transported to Poland. Unfortunately, they stayed in Zbąszyń. Unfortunately, my uncle my father's youngest brother had a Polish passport, and he came from Magdeburg. Through Stetina Barnov, we went and we gave them some raincoats we bought for them on their way through. Of course, we knew then, it was something like bush telephone.
Yeah.
You get to know that they were not admitted to Poland, not returned,
Yes.
but then we lost touch. Then, quite some years afterwards, we got in touch by accident with somebody who knew my auntie, the wife of this gentleman, who survived because she was pregnant. They let her go.
Yeah.
They thought it was punishment. No, it wasn't through the goodness of their heart. The family perished. The husband, my 2 cousin girls and a boy. The wife got to Belgium and she gave birth to another boy who is in Israel now. She died in the meantime. Now, he never knew his family. It's very difficult. He's much younger, but they let her live because she was pregnant. How she got to Brussels, I don't know.
You got aid from the Hilfsverein?
No, we didn't need it because we had sufficient money for
And
everything. I think my
who
father even gave.
And who need he got when you know families?
Yes. I'm sure that anybody any money that was available was given.
Yeah.
I've not heard of anything to the contrary in Berlin, that they did not help. I mean, I remember the Hilfsverein helping people in Berlin.
Yeah.
When they had nothing to eat or clothes, I remember my mother working with them.
Yeah, you remember?
Because we, thankfully, were not in a position to need, not that we were very rich, but we were comfortable. My father was a very, very careful spender.
And you think that the decision your father and mother made after that your brother were in Australia?
No. My mother and father carried on business up to 1938. Then it became very difficult anyhow. The people we worked for Karstadt were not allowed to, they were not allowed to deal with us. And there was no point. And I had a sister in Israel, a brother in London at that time. Of course we tried to get out. It was impossible to get a permit to London. My parents were not adventurous enough to just go. My mother went to visit my brother in 1936, I think.
In London?
Yes.
And she came back?
Whoa.
Yes.
1936 was a very, very good year for us.
Yeah, I know.
It was the year of the Olympics. Yes, they whitewashed us a little.
Yeah.
The yellow didn't show. But it isn't as though we didn't remember. We had to be careful.
And you had German friends at school?
No, because I went to a Jewish school.
That was
I went to a Jewish school.
What is this, please?
Switch it off, Lawrence. Just switch it off if you ask it.
I want to
Please,
know
it's
what
a
it
tape
is.
recorder.
For whom?
For me.
For the university
in the meantime.
and for my doctorate. You had not Jewish friends, or you?
Only in Volksschule.
Yeah, and they left you after that, or you?
No, there was no point. We were only little children. There were no great friendships formed. As a matter of fact, even in Volksschule, I'm afraid I'm one of those people that like Jewish people. We went together with the Jewish people in the Volksschule. It was the same in Australia.
And
there were 7 Jewish people in the class, and they were the ones we fraternized with. I can't help it. This is how it was.
And your parents had
Non-Jewish friends?
No.
No.
You don't remember?
No. We had an employee who was very, very devoted to us. As a matter of fact, after the war, my brother went to see her. She was an old lady already.
Yes?
Yes. Her brother was a dentist. He was our dentist. Very nice lady. But otherwise, we had good people in our house and bad people in our house.
Yeah.
We had a house in Neue Rossstrasse. It had, I think, about eight flats and 2 shops. And some of them were vicious when they could be, because they had somebody behind them too. And the others were as pleasant as they could be with the others watching them. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, I understand.
But we had no actual problems with our neighbours.
No. And when you went out, and they helped you? They came to say goodbye?
No. We didn't want to. There was no point.
No.
There was no point giving them problems. They got a new landlord, and that was it. There was no problem. We left a few things behind for the people that were nice, just, you know, when we went. There was no problem. We didn't fraternize.
And your parents had not Polish...
My parents had Prussian passports because my older brother had not gone to school there, but my father had ambitions for my younger brother to go to gymnasium. He went 1 year with his blue cap and his silver ribbon, and for that he got Prussian passports, but then we were stateless after that. They took it away.
When?
Before, way before 39.
35?
I don't know.
You don't
I was
know.
too young to understand,
yes,
but we were definitely, we were stateless,
Yes?
which was a problem. It was a problem with going places. I think this was another reason that other countries would not accept you.
There were many people without...
Yes, of course. If you took Prussian citizenship, and you were not, my parents came from Poland, they just took it away. But
they sent them not away with
No, because the people that had not, for instance, my younger uncle had Polish passports, then they sent away. So I think in this little bit of bad luck, we had a bit of good luck.
I understand. Yes.
See, they thought that they would get rid of the Polish Jews, or whether they did it with connivance with the Poles, but they could not send us to Poland because we had renounced Polish citizenship.
Your parents didn't want to come to Palestine, or they couldn't?
I don't think they would have been able to. There was a quota system here. They could have sent me within a reasonable time, but there was no way. There was no way that people could go.
The capitalist certificate you had?
Not in those days. That was 36, and at that time they weren't.
No.
We're not quite ready yet, I don't think.
They were Zionists, your parents?
Yes, but not active.
Not active?
Passive, I think. I think we children
you were the one in trouble? All
my sister, my younger
all
brother.
All of you were in Aberdeen?
The three.
Yes.
3 youngest, my younger brother.
And parents liked it?
Oh yes, there was no objection. But they were just very simple, apolitical people. I remember that we used to go to a Yiddish play, and their philosophy was reading the paper, and their criteria was good for Jews or bad for Jews. So in that way there was Zionists and good Jews and religious.
They were religious? Yes. And Habonim was not?
Well, no, it wasn't, but nobody stopped you from not being religious.
Yes, that's right.
So half the people were religious.
Yes?
Oh, yes. It wasn't like in Palestine, for when the people did come and were anti-religious, you know, Dafka. No. It was quite respected. And, if you had a meeting at Saturday afternoon, well, you walked anyhow. There was no such thing as having to take a bus or distances. You walked to your group. So there was no problem. There was no clash between religion and Zionism. Not in Berlin.
You remember any connection with the Palestine Amt or you don't?
Only that people besieged it.
Yeah.
There were thousands of people every day waiting for permission to go to Palestine.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that you
Yes.
remember that
Yes.
you said.
Sure.
And their discussion who going
Well,
can.
it was very difficult to get a permit. And it was easier for children to go.
Yeah, yes, your sister came with the youth.
No, my sister went to Hashara. She was much older than I was, to Yugoslavia. And she stayed in Yugoslavia to teach the next lot of Hashara. Then she came to Israel, to Palestine. 1936 she came to Yagur.
Yes.
So, but she stayed voluntary in Yugoslavia to teach groups.
Other groups. Also from Abanim.
Yes.
I understand.
She was, I think, the original founder of Berlin Habanim. She was in the Tzofim before it was Habanim.
And on the ship and after that in Australia, you were together, all German Jews?
Yes, you know, Jews stick together.
Yes, you remember?
Of course, we had our own problems together. Who would share them with us? The English people? The Dutch people? How could they understand?
And you remember how many Jews of Germany were in Australia?
In Australia, not very many.
No?
Not very many.
No, well, you were in Sydney all...
Oh, there are a lot of people from Germany and a lot of people from Berlin. You don't know them all. You couldn't possibly know. There are thousands.
Thousands?
Oh, yes.
And after you they came more from Germany?
Of course. I was in Australia, Sydney, Australia, when the Germans marched into Poland. September?
Yeah.
August, September, we were in the movies.
September.
And it came through. Well, after that, of course, migration stopped because everything sort of stopped in Europe, I think. There wasn't very much.
After the war, at the beginning of the war?
Not too many. Then
they came?
Not too many. There was no way of it to come.
Yes, I know.
And of course, they were, being of German origin, stupidly, they were thought as enemy aliens. You couldn't get into their head that people that fled Hitler Germany are not enemy aliens.
I know.
So quite a few of them had restricted movements. Yes. But I must say the Australians were very decent.
Yeah?
Yes.
Better than the English?
I don't know how the English were, but the Australian are a little more easygoing at any time. There were people also, young men that were a little older than I was, were put into labour corps. They wanted to go to the army but would not be accepted, being Germans. So they put them into labour corps and gave them fairly menial work, shunting locomotives, carrying munitions or supplies from one train to another, but they were glad to do something.
Because
but they could not join the army.
No way. About in the archive in the Sochnut, letters from Jews, or they were in Australia and they said that they want that the Sochnut will help them to come to Israel in the war.
Well, did they help?
No. They couldn't, I think.
There you are. There you are.
But I thought that they came.
Of course, because it was no fun for young people who fled Germany to be, in a way, it was like an open camp. They could not join the mainstream of Australian life. They stayed there till well, a lot of...
Only the youth?
Well, the elder one, what could they do? They had to report to the police every day. What could they do? Not us. Not us.
Because you had brothers?
Maybe that was why, or maybe because we were stately. We were not German.
You were...
You see?
That's better now.
That's right. It went by passport. That was very unfortunate, and they really didn't understand.
And then you got the Australian identity?
Yes, of course.
After 5 years,
if you're a good citizen, you get Australian papers.
You remember maybe the Germans from Palestine
who went to Australia? Do I remember?
Yeah.
They came with the Israeli guards. The Israelis guarded them. It was a holiday in Sydney when the Israeli guards, to us it was something. We feted them, wined them, dined them.
When
40 something.
42 or 3, I think.
No, it would be like 40, if any it would be 43. There is a very nice man here, Horst Friedlander, who came with them.
Yeah.
And he married an Australian girl who came back with him.
Yeah.
Yes.
With here?
He lives in Bubbly. He's a solicitor for the Institute.
And then you remember this, because I read about it. Yes.
I tell you, those boys came into like the community hall where the Jewish people, young people, congregated, and we were so proud to have special evenings for them because our heroes. And it was poetic justice for them to guard the Germans. They went to concentration camp in Australia, and they were shipped out afterwards.
After the war?
Sure, they were no friends of the Germans, the Australians, but unfortunately they couldn't distinguish between the good Germans and the bad Germans. So it was a bit of a problem to convince them. But many civic leaders tried to explain to the authorities. Of course, it took some time, but I think eventually they understood. Many people intervened on behalf of those young Jewish boys that happened to have German passports who wanted to fight and couldn't. They weren't allowed to, but their life was made a little easier after a few representations of sensible people.
And they were not in the army up to the
they were
end
in
of the war?
uniform, but like a labor corps, like a working force.
They don't trust them?
No, because they didn't understand. They really didn't understand. Which is a terrible waste of good manpower. If those boys had landed up in Israel or Palestine, I think they would have been a little more useful.
All the German Jews came after to Israel, or
No, there are a lot.
There remains
Yes.
many up to
Many,
now.
many. Yes.
And your family, when
Well, my family is here half. Half are here, half are there.
Your brother?
We're all Zionist inclined, but not everybody. Australia, after all, is a very wonderful country.
Yeah?
It's free, it's easy, it's not as, how can I say, not as rich living as Americans. We live very simply. And you'll find, I don't know whether you can see statistics of Jewish people that have come from Australia, they adapt very well to the Israeli way of life.
Yes?
Because besides the weather being about the same, we don't demand. We like a simple life. I think we're better citizens than some of the Israelis.
Very nice. And you couldn't after that get out from Germany after other people of your family?
Well, the ones that went to Spongen disappeared, and a couple of others who had Polish passports went to Siberia.
Yeah.
Yes.
And after
my
the war?
uncle, no, they died. It was they were getting too old and too much hardship. My uncle died on the march. Somewhere in Siberia. Somebody marched with him and told us. It's something that I think every family has a story like that.
Yes.
It's, and then some miraculously escaped. I have an uncle, the youngest brother of my mother, who was transported. They lived in Poland, went to Russia, stayed in Russia about 10 years, was repatriated with the Poles back to Poland, which was lucky.
In 56?
Yes.
And then
they came to Australia. They came to Australia in 1959, bringing some furniture with them, a dread of the Russians and a dread of the Poles, and they're doing very well in Australia. They live a very nice life. Their daughter came to Israel on Aliyah.
Interesting.
So this is how this is how families are split. You see, it's. I think that for anybody from the Western countries to come to Israel, he has to be very Zionist motivated, because life is not easy here. Really not easy here, and very aggravating in a lot of things, because people are people. But for everyone that aggravates you, there are two that are nice. This is what makes.
You remember a little about the last weeks in Germany? You can try to tell something?
Well, we were made to feel that to be frightened.
Yes.
Anything could happen. But we were made to feel to be frightened since 1933.
Yes.
Yes. Because in Habonim I had a Madrid whose father was returned in an urn, 1933. So, and we've lived under the shadow from various people staying with us whose husbands were interned. Although I was young enough, I could understand it. Helpless, there's nothing we could do about it except help those people to have a roof over their head.
But you think that after the Kristallnacht it was worse?
It was worse. It was everything breathing in a way.
That then who pushed them to go?
Circumstances pushed them to go. I mean,
No.
But there was nowhere to go for anybody stateless. Who would have them? Who would have them? How many people wanted to go out and nobody would have them? You know that. America had a quota system. England didn't give you a work permit. They had up to here. Swiss people shoved you back around the border. I mean, you know what happened.
You think that the active, there were your brother who sent them and
My brother was a young man in 1933, and the Gestapo came in the front and he walked out the back. And my father put him on the train to London with 10 mark, and that was it.
But after that,
That was 1933.
you think that your brother was who told your parents to come out?
Oh, I think it was obvious. There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to go for a middle-class, middle-aged couple. Nowhere. It's different when you have a young person. They can change their job, they can change their language. It's different.
Because Danny told me that his father escaped from the Bonjin,
And he was lucky.
and when he came, I should try
Was he
to
married? He wasn't married then.
No,
There you
I
are.
don't know, but
Well,
I think
people
so.
that were married and had children were already in middle age. 40, 35, 40, and you aged a lot quicker under Hitler than you did before, I can assure you.
But they sent the children out. That most of German Jews sent children out.
Why not? It's there.
No, that's it's good, but the youth aliyah and so on.
We have some wonderful people here that came from Youth Aliyah.
Yes, and
It's the best nucleus there is here,
yeah.
I think.
But that was the way of the German Jews to send the children out.
I don't know whether it was
In
German.
Poland they don't do
I
it.
don't know anything about Polish Jews. I think anybody that was Polish Jew and didn't leave Poland wasn't right in the head anyhow.
Maybe they
The
couldn't
Poles
also.
were always anti-Semites.
Yes.
Always.
You think that the Germans know?
They're just obedient servants.
But not with the heart. They were not anti-Semitic with the heart.
Some.
Oh, some, yes.
Some, I would say that any German that was anti-Semitic did it either out of superstition or because of personal gain.
Yeah.
And they had plenty of personal gain from it. Why? An employee that would never dream of having a shop, you give it to him on a platter, look. It's not that I don't blame them, but it's human weakness. To gain for yourself, never mind about the next one. I think it is just...
But Kroll, they were not in the street also.
Yes, the young ones, why not? I had something spritzed into my eye. It nearly blinded me. I don't know what it was. And they were roaring hilariously, a couple of youths, Hitler youths. I don't know what it was. I thought I'd go blind. But it went away, but it gave me a terrible shock. I might have been 12 years old then.
38?
Yes, would be about 12 years old now. I just went over the road to buy some jam. We had a confiterie there. Just spritzed it in.
Then they grown up.
We all lived in fear of the doorbell.
Yeah.
Of course.
So that was SS, but...
No, the Gestapo. Yeah, but you can't say who was the Gestapo. They were people.
Yeah.
They were people. I think that there were good people and there were bad people. If you think that all the Germans were bad, they weren't.
No.
But they were all afraid.
Yeah. To help they were afraid. Most of them.
Most.
We
Some
know
didn't
something,
need.
yes.
I think that there were some that would even help my father. But I don't know about it. And he certainly wouldn't have told.
No,
Well, not a 12-year-old that says you can tell somebody else. This is something you don't talk about because you endanger other people.
yeah.
I am sure, but by not hindering, it is also a help sometimes.
Yeah.
Like the policeman that pushed the first to the back.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He could have taken one. Nobody would have told him. Why? His wife might have liked one. Takes all sorts of people.
Yes.
In anywhere in the world.
But
I don't think it's a purely German phenomenon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's mass hysteria that you can get anywhere. Anywhere at all.
Yeah.
I had a book given to me the other day. It's called The Stories of Rachel, and I opened it up and there was 1498 Inquisition. And I closed it after 3 pages. And I said to my neighbour who loaned it to me that humanity hasn't learned anything in 450 years. You would swear this was Hitler Germany. So if you'd like to read that, that explains you what I think of Hitler Germany. Nothing. And I don't think they have now. I'm afraid that unless we look after ourselves, nobody else will. Nobody else will. Sure, there are good people and bad people, but it takes one bad one to do a lot of harm. Do you know that the Jewish saying that the world will be saved when there's 10 just men? You try and find 10. Everybody has a little bit of it. Some are weak, some are bad, some get fed up.
And the last months when you had no school and what...
We stayed at home.
At
For
home.
us it was wonderful. For a 13-year-old not to have school, that's fine. But we prepared to go. And we went by train, and I can assure you we were shivered Bentheim is the border to Holland. Bentheim. I think we were glad. I think we sighed when we got over. We were quite scared that we may not go out. And we had 3 days in Holland with some family.
Yes.
In Amsterdam, and then we went to Rotterdam on the boat. And we kept together pretty well, the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Yes.
The German Jewish or?
Makes no difference.
No.
I don't think there was Viennese, and there was. It never made any difference to us. If it made any difference to them, that's their problem. I'm not, especially amongst the Jews, racist. It makes no difference to me.
And all of them came to Australia.
The people that yes. There was
And you have a community in Australia?
Very little. There were 2 young ladies who till they died, we were in contact. Then there was a mother with a son who became a scientist, who we knew, but you make new friends. And I don't think there were too many old friends from my parents left. They found them in Israel. When they came in 1952 to visit, they found a lot of friends here. From Poland. A lot.
Yeah.
But in Australia we made friends and...
Only Jews? No?
Yes.
Yes? Always?
Yes. That's why I'm in Israel.
Understand.
But the normal Australian person, they were very nice and very helpful. But the general public, as such, the blind face of the public was very resentful of the foreigners. They weren't used to it. People with briefcases, people with string bags, foreigners.
Yeah?
But they are used to it very nicely. It's okay.
We remember the Australian soldiers. They were very nice. We loved them. They were so
very nice, kind-hearted, full of sport, full of drink.
And very
yes.
warm. With,
yes, I don't think there's any problem with Australians as such. We unfortunately have not the country here that they have there. No matter what they do to the country, it'll stay rich. It's a very, very rich country in resources. Oil, coal, diamonds, gold, everything. And no problem of natives. There are no more natives.
They don't let them come.
There are no more natives, very few. Very few natives.
Because they are afraid of it.
No, there aren't any. They killed them out 100 years ago.
Yes, but now from Chinese and Indians, they
it's
don't.
Not natives. They are different countries.
No, but they don't let them come to us.
No, but it's not because they're Chinese. It's because they would undercut the worker. They would work for nothing. We have very strong trade unions.
Yes, in Australia.
In Australia, very strong trade unions.
And the Jews came to Australia when your parents came. They found jobs to do.
Yes, because most of them were skilled, and there were not so many Australian people. It was a very, very big continent with a very small population. I think there were 8 million.
Yes.
And the newcomers brought skills and know-how. They helped a tremendous lot to build the country.
Yeah.
We had a wave of 39, we had a wave of after war, we had a wave in the 50s. And each of them brought their own strengths with them.
Yeah.
And really helped make the country, helped, not that they
couldn't do it.
No, not that they needed so many, but they did contribute a lot to the wealth of Australia.
They got you with sympathy?
No, the Australian as such doesn't like foreigners. The real Australian. It's foreign to him.
And you had...
But individually, they will take to a person. They're quite open. But collectively, they don't like foreigners. All right, it doesn't matter.
Yes, and it was the first time it was difficult to...
Only difficult to make a living, of course. We came with nothing. But my father worked, and we worked. We did those shopping nets which the Australians had never set before. We worked them. It was about a shilling a piece. And in 2-3 years, everybody...
Yeah.
Yes. Oh no, it was right. It was all right. It was no problem. No problem at all.
All the Jews came to Australia found
Yes.
living for the living?
Yes. If you had your health.
And you had aid from the joint or somebody else?
There was aid for some people. It was not the joint, it was what they called the welfare society, who had money at its disposal.
From the Jews in Australia?
They had money at its disposal to help the refugees, as we were called, like any other people. Some misused it, some used it. There are still many people, I'm afraid to say, who are very rich today and don't have the decency to give the amount that they took to any charity.
Yeah.
We know of quite a few people. Now, this is people, you see, although they're Jews, people are people.
There was a little Jewish community in Australia before you came, and they
helped with money, but they weren't very forthcoming with friendship.
Yeah.
It was the story like the German Jews with the Poles.
Yes.
Okay, some intermarried, some made. We are different anyhow. So why fraternize? We did all right amongst our own, but they could have helped a little bit, I think. But they didn't, and we got on all right, just the same.
But they didn't?
Not too much. Some did.
Okay.
Some were very wonderful individuals, you see. Some very wonderful individuals that helped. There was a man who founded, do you remember Dr. Lowy, who is the president of the JNF, was the president of JNF here. And he came to Australia, and my sister-in-law's father, who was very Australian, he was the first one to form the Zionist organisation in Sydney.
Yeah.
And he was a real Aussie. So they hadn't heard of Zionism.
No.
No. I found it between some others, Habonim.
Yes, you made a
In
group.
Australia,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, and you
Well,
were
there's
active
somebody
there.
It's just past near Tzfat.
I see. של הבונים.
של הבונים is not
כפר הנשיא?
כפר הנשיא, Betty Kesselman, who was a co-founder with
Yes, and you had groups of הבונים. The German Jews began it as a group?
German, we had children, young people whose parents were German, whose parents were Australian,
yes,
whose parents were Viennese. It made
the foundation, the beginning when you
the
came?
beginning was, Betty Kesselman's father is English, my father is German, Polish, Yehuda Fair was Hungarian.
But the refugees begin
yes, but also a couple of the Australian girls and boys were interested, who had been there before.
But
there was a girl called Queenie Slutskin, she's Queenie Davis now, who founded a non-political Zionist organization called Ezra, who every year sends equipment here up to this day to any of the hospitals that need it. Any request gets channeled to her, she collects the money and buys the instrument and sends it. And she was one of our founders when before she was married. So it's really a cross section of the community. Like I said, every community has different people.
Yes, but the
cannot-
Zionists, they came to Australia through the refugees.
I think that the impetus to Zionists came through Hitler Germany, through the awareness
Yeah.
that, I mean, if you're religious, I mean, I don't understand this from here, from Meir Sharif.
No,
To
no.
me, if you're religious and you pray to Zion 5 times a day, you are a Zionist. I'm sorry.
I understand, but the organization is after you came there to the...
No, it was a little before.
Yeah?
It was a little before. I'm sure. Please, help yourself. And they did quite good.
You remember how many abonim you have there in our city?
Not very many.
Not many.
Not very many. Maybe we started with 15 and we got 100, and then they married, and now, well, they sent a Garin about 10 years ago to Kibbutz Israel.
Oh, yeah?
That's the offspring of our Habanim.
Oh, nice.
But there's not, let's switch it.